Hi, I'm Lonna Kelly, and this is Hudson Valley Art Speak. Thank you for tuning in today. Today I'm going to introduce you to Mary Ann Glass, who is a photographer and a gallery owner. She does wedding photography, and she also does iPhone photography, which I'm really looking forward to hearing a lot about. Thank you for coming today, Mary Ann.
Well, I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah. Why don't we start off, why don't you tell me a little bit about Riverwinds Gallery in Beacon?
Okay. Riverwinds Gallery, we just celebrated our 11th year, and we have 45 artists in the gallery, and that includes painters, photographers, potters, jewelry makers, fiber arts, and we specialize in Hudson Valley artists. We want to help them make a living here.
Yeah.
And we want to introduce people to artist-made goods and painting and photography, original art. We think that's very important for people to value it and to support the arts.
Yeah. And weren't you just voted the best gallery in the Hudson
Yeah.
Valley?
We were very excited. We got the best gallery. We tied with Vassar.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
So for 2013. So we were very excited. So it's nice to know you have your support from your customers, that they took the time and voted for you.
Yeah, yeah. And we were talking a little bit before about kind of the art scene in Beacon, how that continues to grow, and you've got new galleries and new music venues there.
Yes, it's Beacon's a very lively town. In addition, some young artists have started opening some galleries, and so that's given us a lot more variety. The town crier moved to Beacon, which we are very excited about. And then we have some other music venues, Dogwood and Quinn's. Also, there's also a lot of jamming that goes on at the Howland Center, at the Bank Square Coffee House. Someone finally bought the old movie theater, and so we're starting to have theater productions there. So we're getting not just the 2D art, but we're getting quite an array of creative efforts going on. We have music down at the waterfront. They've got a rock and roll camp for kids, and they learn how to play rock and roll.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And still Second Saturdays?
Second Saturday has been extremely successful. It runs all year round, January, February, whatever. And the galleries are open late. They have their openings. There's always music things going on. And it gets quite a crowd, and the locals come out too. It's just it's a nice way to get out and see what's going on and see your friends and look at art and music. And
are you having that art event where artists are doing different windows in the town right now?
Yes, it's called Windows on Main Street, and I'm not sure how many years that's been going on. It might be about 10. And so artists apply. Some ask for certain windows, some are assigned. We now have Beth Haber and Stephen Lewis, and we have a musical window where there's little microphones, and you move your hands and you can make music.
Oh, that's great.
So it's very interactive.
That's at your gallery?
A lot of fun. Yes.
Yeah.
But it goes all up and down Main Street, so people get the map and they do the route.
Right, right. And now you're also a wedding photographer. That's one of your other hats.
Yes. Well, in photography, that's where the money is, actually, is in wedding photography. I started, I don't know how many years ago, with a friend of mine. It used to be a very staid thing. The guy took out his Hasselblad, and they took the formal shots, and that was it. But as the film got better, you could use the 35mm cameras and do a lot more fun things, a lot more spontaneous. You could capture expressions and emotions as the day kind of rolled along. And it became a very creative thing to do. And you just have to adjust to whatever the lighting is, to whatever the people are, whatever their mood is.
Right.
So it keeps you on your toes. And it's sort of fun people want to be photographed at weddings. It's not like photojournalism or something. They're all dressed up, they're ready to go, and they want their photo taken. So
yeah. It's a long day. You basically want to start the day before, checking your camera equipment, then you have to be there early at the bride's house and just go
it can be a very long day.
Yeah.
Recently, our business has skewed more towards the gay community. We're on a site that lists us as a gay-friendly photography, and those have been fun. They're often a lot smaller. They're very emotional. These people have been waiting a long time to get married, and they're a lot of fun. So that's our business has sort of been going in that direction lately.
And what is the name of your business?
Fait accompli.
Fait accompli.
F-E-T-E. It's sort of a play on words.
Yeah.
Half our brides have no idea what it means. So.
I'm sure they could look it up.
Yeah. We'll explain it to them.
Yeah. So what led you to wedding photography?
When I just decided to be a professional photographer, I thought I would be making my living at craft shows. And I was doing one in the Cape, and these wedding photographers came in and they were talking with me, and I looked at their stuff, and it was very exciting. And I realized that it had changed a lot. And so I contacted a couple of friends and said, "You want to get in, do this?" And one of them said yes. So that's sort of how it started. And it's always tricky to get your first job.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But she had a friend who, we were doing it for free. Everyone does their first one for free, basically.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot since then. I'm not sure I would shoot that again the way we did. But.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed from the information that you gave me was you said you don't use a lot of photographic equipment when you do weddings. You're kind of a minimalist.
For me, it gets in the way.
Yeah.
You're fiddling with the equipment, and you're not focusing on there and there and there and there and there. You're always looking around. And as the technology has gotten much better, you don't need as much. I mean, you still need the flash, but the videographers, for example, are now just carrying Canon SLR cameras and a little LED light thing, and that's it now.
Right, really.
So the equipment keeps getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, those Canons are great.
Yeah. I mean, I would do a wedding with my iPhone, but it wouldn't look professional.
Oh, no, people wouldn't like that. They wouldn't want to pay you that kind of money to do it with an iPhone. Yeah, and since we're talking about iPhones, being on the river, well, at least your gallery is on the river. Do you take a lot of pictures of the Hudson with your iPhone?
Well, when I go into the city, I used to read the Times, and now I take my iPhone and I put it up against the glass. You have to put it up against the glass because the glass is really dirty.
Yeah,
and there's reflection, so you have to put it right up against there. And then as the scenery rolls by, I click, 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 and then because I can do this, then I take my apps and then I make a photo while I'm sitting there in the car. So.
And it doesn't blur? Or it does blur sometimes? Or
sometimes, but a lot of times not.
Yeah.
These are amazing little cameras, I have to say. And I've gotten some really extraordinary Hudson River photos from it.
Yeah. And then what do you do with them? You use apps to...
Yes.
To what?
There are 1,000 apps for the iPhone.
Yeah.
I took a class with Dan Burkholder, who's the godfather of iPhone photography. He was sort of the first really serious photographer to embrace the iPhone. And he's been proselytizing ever since. And it's a great workshop that he does. And it's good to have someone to help you sort out which ones are worthwhile and which are sort of one-trick ponies, that really aren't going to do much for you. So there's 3 or 4 that I use quite a bit.
Yeah, and what would you recommend them? What would you recommend that somebody use or get?
There's a couple of shooting apps that I use a lot. One is called Pro HDR, and basically HDR is a way of getting an exposure on all aspects of your photo. We see this much. The camera can see this much.
Yeah.
So the HDR, it'll expose for the darks, for the medium tones, and for the lights, and then put them together. So you have detail in your shadows and you have detail in your highlights.
Right.
Which can be difficult to get. And so I sort of know I can capture a scene, even if it's very contrasty. The other kind of really cool shooting app is called Auto Stitch. And it's a collage effect, really. And so you take your camera and you shoot around. And I've done as many as 30 images.
Right.
And then it magically puts them together into an image. There's a little bit of distortion, like a wide angle.
Right, yeah.
But it's extraordinary what it does. And we were talking, that's how I do my panoramas generally, because the panorama, the camera's sort of like a little string of spaghetti.
Too skinny. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get the ceiling or the floor or the clouds or whatever.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question about two of the photos that you provided me with. There's one at Grand Central Station, and there's another one in a diner. Now, when you shoot inside like that, do you use that first app, HDR, that you mentioned?
It depends. If the scene is kind of even lit, I may not.
Yeah.
But I do get more saturated color if I use it.
Okay. Which is a deeper, richer color.
Yeah.
And then what about, say, when you're shooting in the woods, or I know there's a picture of Niagara Falls that is just wonderful.
Yeah,
it looks like the water's just roaring over the falls.
It was a great day. I think I used Pro HDR, and then once I get the image, my sort of go-to software that I use is called Snapseed. And that's one word, and it's was developed by Nick Filters, which is a software company. I have it on my laptop. Very powerful programs. You know, the whole suite costs, I don't know, $400, $600. The Snapseed here is like $2.99.
Right. I love those cheap apps.
It's different than the one you get on the computer, but it has some really fantastic things on it. And you can adjust exposure, detail, contrast. There's something called ambiance. You can do black and white. You can add grain. You can add grunge. I love the grunge.
Yeah.
You can add texture. You can add vignetting, frames. It's really quite an amazing program, and you see immediately what you've done.
Right.
Which is really cool. So you slide the little slider over, and you can see immediately the change in the image, and if you like it or not.
Right.
And if you like it, then you hit something and it saves it, and then you go on to the next effect that you might be interested in.
Right. Can you undo them quickly? Because I can just see
Yes.
how they would add up, and you'd have. Do you use a lot of different effects on each, or do you just?
Oh, sure.
You do. Yeah.
I mean, you could be sort of simple and basic and just make it brighter or whatever, but no, I mean, there's too many toys to play with.
Yeah.
And there's also, there's other apps. There's one called Vintage Photos, and it gives you the look of old photos or old etchings or whatever, and that's kind of fun to play with
Which
too.
is a perfect segue to the photos that at Shiloh.
Yes.
At the Civil War battleground, that have that very old. I assume it was at a battleground since it was a cannon. That have that very old look to them.
Yeah, the first one is of a monument, and I did that at Snapseed, but the cannon was in the vintage. I couldn't resist. I mean,
Yeah, that was terrific.
It just seemed to fit it so well. And also, it sort of takes your image out of the snapshot category.
Yeah.
You've got blue sky, green grass. You're in a Civil War battlefield. You want to do something to kind of evoke a history.
Right.
And that's part of what I'm using these apps for, is to sort of build an emotion into them. It's not just taking the photo, it's making the photo.
Right.
And it's how I felt about what I was taking.
Right. Believe it or not, we're almost out of time.
Okay.
And I had wanted to talk briefly about the photos that you took at Auschwitz and Birkenau.
It's odd to be taking photos there. You feel like maybe you shouldn't be doing this. Like you work in the angles and the composition. You go, should I be thinking about this here? It seems sort of trivial.
Yeah.
But as a photographer, wherever you are, you take photos. So what can I tell you?
Right. Just so everybody knows, in our listening audience,
They
there were
were
concentration
horrible,
camps.
Very
in World
horrible
War II.
concentration camps, and a very emotional tour that you take through.
Yeah. The pictures are kind of grim,
I
but beautiful.
felt they needed
have
to
a
be,
beauty to them. Yeah. Linda.
Marianne.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
I think I was thinking of Linda Hubbard then.